favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21, 22, and 23 form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The interpretation clause, which is clause 22, is contained on page 23. Those in favor that clause 22, which is interpretation clause form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the short title, which is clause 23 on page 24, form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the schedules 1 to 3, contained in pages 24 to 32, form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum is contained on page 35. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Okay, the last one is just one page. This is the National Commission for Colleges of Education Act number 3, 1989, Repeal and Reamendment Bill 2022. Those in favor that the long title on page 1 form part of the bill say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. The clauses, we only have one clause, that's clause 17, contained on page 1. Those in favor that this clause 17, form part of the bill say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
I am requesting, Mr. President, to report progress.
Mr. President, I rise to second that the president the chairman reports progress. I say second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the Chartered Institute of Public Administration of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title, as recommended. Clauses 1 to 20, as recommended. Interpretation, clause 21, as recommended. Short title, clause 22, as recommended. Schedules 1 to 3, as recommended. Explanatory memorandum, as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. The second report. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Analyst Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title, as recommended. Clauses 1 to 21, as recommended. Interpretation clause, clause 22, as recommended. Short title, clause 23, as recommended. Schedules 1 to 3, as recommended. Explanatory memorandum, as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. The third report. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the National Commission for Colleges of Education Act number 3, 1989, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2022, and approved as follows. Long title, as recommended. Clauses, as clause 17, as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
That the bill be read the third time.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Public Administration of Nigeria and to make provisions, among other things, for membership and promote the profession of public administration and for related matters 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria to provide for the regulation and control of its membership and promote the practice of forensics and fraud investigation in Nigeria and for related matters 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Colleges of Education Act Number 3 of 1989 and to reenact the National Commission for Colleges of Education and for other matters connected therewith 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Public Administration of Nigeria and to make provisions, among other things, for membership and promote the profession of public administration and for related matters 2022. The bill is read the third time and passed. A bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria to provide for the regulation and control of its membership and promote the practice of forensics and fraud investigation in Nigeria and for related matters 2022, third reading. The bill is read the third time and passed. A bill for an act to repeal the National Commission for Colleges of Education Act Number 3 of 1989 and to reenact the National Commission for Colleges of Education and for other matters connected therewith, 2022, third reading. The bill is read the third time and passed. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Mobile Police and Special Forces Academy Guazo Establishment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 10th November 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ali Mohammed Udume to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Ali Undume.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Ali Ndume, representing Borno South, and I am the sponsor of this bill for the establishment of the Nigerian Police Special Forces and the Nigerian Police Special Forces Training School, Limankara. Mr. President, and my highly respected colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this bill which seeks to establish the Nigerian Police Special Forces and Nigerian Police Special Forces Training School, Limankara Goza, to, among other things, combat the menace of terrorism, insurgency, banditry.
One bill, right? One bill. Okay. Okay.
In order to enhance effective national security through provision of professionalized training knowledge, as well as to award certificates to deserving and qualified officers on successful completion. The bill was read for the first time in these hallowed chambers on Wednesday, 10th November.
One house, please.
And distinguished colleagues, let me add, for the purpose of understanding this bill, there is mobile training camp in Limankara established 34 to 40 years back, which is known as a training center for mobile police. And we felt that there is no special forces training center in this country. And there is the need, especially now, where we face various forms of challenges, to have an institution or academy where special forces, not only of the Nigerian police, but other security agencies can be used to train special forces. As it is now, the Army, Air Force, Navy, and other security agencies normally send their personnel for training, special training, because of the situation we find ourselves. And you find out that most of them have to send these people to even countries outside, and even countries like West African countries that are smaller than Nigeria, because there is none in the country as it is as present. So that is what brought the idea of converting the mobile training camp in Limankara, or upgrading it into this.
Is it mobile training special forces? So do we need another bill for this?
No. Mr. President, that training camp is a provision by the police. It's not backed by law. It is the idea of police creating a camp to train mobile police only. But what we are saying, if you back it by law and you establish it as an academy, then the law will now define what are the activities of that academy. They already have this, the structure as known as mobile police. But we want to have an institution where special forces will be trained there. And if there is, as they used to have, assistance from even foreign companies or countries or developed countries, the trainees come to the camp to train the trainers. And that way we reduce the cost of having to send our security agency personnel to another country for such forces. And let me also add that the bill, after drafting the bill, I contacted the IGP currently to share the ideas. In fact, they are the ones that suggested that the name should read like what I have said now. But my initial submission is that there should be Special Forces Training Academy in Limankara, which is already existing as a mobile police training camp. So the objective, as stated here, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, is to combat the menace of terrorism, insurgency, banditry, and other erroneous crimes that have been heightened these days, and that there is a need to have trained special forces to deal with it. And also that will provide them the training that is required to, if they address such issues, will have a special center that will investigate. As it is now, we have a lot of these terrorists and others that have been arrested, but there is no particular place where they specialize in profiling, in investigating them, in prosecuting, giving advice as to how to prosecute them. Then another objective, of course, is to collaborate with other sister agencies within the Nigeria and relevant international agencies on matter relating to this. Also, to engage in information and intelligence gathering, and also to provide advanced training in I've already stated that, anti-terrorism, drilling, counter-insurgency, espionage, and disorder management for serving police officers serve in the Nigerian police. I said very straightforward bill that requires everybody's support. The enactment of this bill will go a long way to help in training manpower that can effectively combat the menace caused by these outlawed groups. In line with Orders 76.3 of the Standing Order 2022 as amended, a compendium which you find attached of the financial implication of the establishment of this institute. I therefore urge you all to support the expeditious passage of this bill. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues and Mr. Senate President.
Thank you. Before you take your seat and before I call anyone, let me just clear this. One of the objectives you read out was to investigate all terrorist-related crimes. Now, is this not going to be the exclusive preserve of these special forces? Does this now mean that the police and other agents cannot investigate?
What I mean is that, Mr. President,
We could be, if this bill passes, by law, they will not have the power to investigate all terrorist-related crimes. Not exclusively. Yes.
Mr. President, we should all know that this is the second reading. When it gets to the committee, if there is anything that can be expunged, added. But what that paragraph means is that in the engagement of the anti-terrorist or whatever special forces, normally they are the ones that will now apprehend the culprits. They should not just pass it over, but do preliminary investigation before handing them over to the appropriate authority or institution that will investigate.
Thank you. Senator Otazi, I'll take the leadership first. Senator Otazi, please.
Thank you, Mr.
He's in the leadership, you are not. Smart as TMB. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Chukwuka Otazi, and I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. Mr. President, I have looked and listened attentively to Senator Alain Dume try to lead the debate on the establishment of Nigerian Police Special Forces and Nigeria Police Special Forces Training School. I know Senator Alain Dume as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Army. I know also that Senator Alain Dume is a husband of a judge. But what he has presented here, I don't see any, there's no connect. We have already police, we have a police institution. We have other agencies of government that handle everything that is stated here. I don't see any reason why we'll be bringing up something of this nature that's already taken care of. We have other institutions, we have police. This is normal routine duty of police. The DSS are there. The NIA is there. The DMI, all of them. All this is repeated here, are all in that place. But if this is for the purposes of just to special emission for because of these election purposes, well, we might allow it for the second reading. But if not, I don't think this should go beyond this. And we should bury this one here. And for that, there's no need for this. It's a surplusage and a waste of our time.
Thank you very much, Senator Smart Adeyemi, please.
Mr. President, I must thank you for allowing me to add my voice to this commendable bill. Mr. President, there is no amount of money or and all over the world, Mr. President, there are innovations and improvements on facilities and institutions of learning. In the world today, globally, academically, Mr. President, most institutions now run specialized courses, specialized institutions. Today, in the US and in some part of Europe, you see university for legal studies, university for engineering. So, in essence, Mr. President, we must move with the trend of development globally. The Nigerian police deserve all the support that is needed, Mr. President. not just in the area of establishing more institutions for them to be able to compete with other police forces across the globe, but indeed even the pay package, the welfare of Nigerian policemen. I am sure, Mr. President, insignificantly few politicians today, if we are going to be honest with ourselves, we want to encourage our children to join the police force because their salary, their well-being is still very poor. Today, Mr. President, many people accuse the police for so many wrongs. Why? It is due to the fact that there are no enough professional institutions to train the Nigerian police. I think, Mr. President, that this bill deserves the support of all of us and all other requests that will make the Nigerian police to be effective, not without prejudice, Mr. President, to the agitation.
Prohibit, please, one house.
Prejudice, Mr. President, to the request of state police. If some of us believe that both the federal police, the state police, and indeed the local government police should be allowed to function. Nigeria is such a large country that we require more than any time in the history effective policing. There can only be effective policing when there's specialization, when there's adequate training for a policeman. In most nations of the world that I've seen, Mr. President, when you meet an average policeman, he knows what to do, what not to do, and they gather information. This institution, Mr. President, I think it deserves our support without any sentiment of opposition or ruling party. And I'm sure that the police will protect everyone, both the rich, the poor, the ruling party, and the motion parties. So I think, Mr. President, we should all support this bill. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Let's take a professional here. Senator Dimka, a retired commissioner of police.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Being a former commissioner of police and a beneficiary of police mobile training school in Goza, I want to stand and support the motion moved by my senior colleague here. Mr. President, when we look at things critically, considering what it used to be in those days in Goza, we started Goza Training School. But when you get there and see what's on the ground now, it's very regrettable. When we're talking security in this country, I think there's need for us to pay special attention to specialization. If attention is given to the institution in Goza today, I believe the crisis that we're encountering at that area would have been minimized. Mr. President, when you get there today, what it used to be, as I said earlier, is in shambles. The whole place has been destroyed by Boko Haram. What I'm trying to say now is, if we get a specialized institution approved and backed by the law, it will go a long way in solving our insecurity, the whole country. And as the sponsor said, there's need for us to get that institution backed by the law, and it could be used to train not only police officers, but other, security agencies in the whole country. Mr. President, I stand and I support in earnest that that institution should be turned into a specialized institution to improve the conduct of insecurity in this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let me go this way, Senator. Okay, Jeff. You have to do some balancing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, Jeff. I represent Benue Northwest. Mr. President, when it comes to matters of security, I normally like to come with an open mind, coming from a state that has security challenges. So I was listening attentively, especially when you asked the sponsor of the bill the question. Now, you asked whether the role of combating terrorism would be exclusive to these forces be very, very serious. The debate on security architecture in this country has the component when you confide it into a law, you run into troubled legal waters. And so that's my concern. So this can be done administratively, and all of the objectives of this bill will still be achieved without seeking to codify. So for that reason, I think I agree with Senator Tazi that this should be stepped down. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Adetumbi, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Olubumi Adetumbi, representing Ekiti North. First, I'd like to congratulate the sponsor of this bill because it is a very, very strategic one. A lot of people have spoken on the need to do everything to
Please, one house, please. Senator Suswan, please take your seat. Senator Adeja, please take your seat.
A lot has been said about the need to improve the security architecture of this country, and nothing can be too much to do, given the existential threat that security has posed for our country. It is important to also underscore from a resource optimization point of view that any bill that aims at converting and upgrading existing facilities into sustainable institutions that can serve better is a laudable one, because we are talking of an existing facility that has the potential to cater for more than it is currently doing. It's not asking for establishment of a new institution, but in enhancing an existing institution to do more. Thereby, in this era of scarcity of funds, we are pushing an agenda that ensures that limited resources are stretched to their limit in the best interest of the country. However, the objective of the institution needs to be clearly, defined as distinct from an operating intelligence institution, and focus entirely on the title of the bill, which is training, capacity building, training, upgrading skills, such that special forces across all the law enforcement agencies will have a special institution where specialized training can take place. I think it is important that this must be stressed in pushing this bill forward. I'd like to support it, and I ask my colleagues to do so.
Thank you. Senator Sani Musa, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very good bill, and the objectives are very reasonable. But my own thinking is that since we have the Police Act and we have the police institutions, why don't we look at those bills and see how we can make some amendments to go with the expectations that this bill is trying to bring. Because if we look at it today, it's not like we don't have forces that will be able to tackle all these objectives that were listed. But how effective have they been? So in my own opinion, I believe that if within the institutions we are able to look at areas that we can make amends and make them more responsive, I think it will be much better than creating another special force by law. But we can create special forces, not only one, within the same institution of the police. with the existing law. All we need to do is to amend it. And that is my opinion, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Senator Barao, and thereafter, Senator Akinlure. Barao, please. And then Bakia thereafter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barao Jibrin, Arabakaro North. Mr. President, permit me to first of all commend the sponsor of this bill. I stand for it, I support it wholeheartedly, and I urge all my colleagues to support it. Mr. President, there is no problem we face as we speak as a nation, like the problem of insecurity. Therefore, anything that will strengthen our security should be welcomed by all and sundry. And this bill is seeking to do exactly just what I've said, to create special forces and also their training facility. This is very good. The sponsor of this bill has been involved in what was happening or what has been happening in Borno Aziz since the coming in of Boko Haram. He has tried all his best. He has fought to bring peace to that area. He has seen it all. Therefore, he is somebody who has the knowledge of what is expected to be done in order to strengthen our security in that area and in the entire country. So I believe that having this bill passed and creating what this bill is proposing will definitely help our security architecture. It will help to strengthen our security in this country. I therefore support this bill and I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Akinlure.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name remains Senator Akinlure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the sponsor of this bill because it is timely and very urgent as well. Mr. President, the present Nigerian police force need retraining and retraining because many of them were not trained and few of them were sent abroad to go and train. We are spending millions of dollars. Mr. President, this bill is very important, crucial to the security architecture of this country because if we have specialized training institutions, there is an existing one that needs to be enhanced by the passage of this particular bill. Many Nigerian police need adequate specialized training to combat insecurity in this country. Mr. President, therefore, I lend my full support to the passage of this bill to law without any sentiment. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator Bakia.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I am Senator Engineer Kabir Bakia, representing Kaduna Central Senatorial Zone. I rise, Mr. President, to support this very, very important bill. Passage of it was second reading. Why? Because of the problem of insecurity. Especially, I can say, apart from the Boko Haram, which of course now is a little bit calm, but if you go to Kaduna, Zamfara, and Sokoto, we still have that problem. Mr. President, even last week I could recall, we had a similar problem in Kaduna, just the border, whereby even some military, some military personnel from Niger came in to intervene, and some of them were killed. So I think with this special forces training, I think that's going to be maybe to add value to our security issues. So, but Mr. President, instead of establishing, we have many police training schools. Why can't we just pick one and modernize it and send the curriculum for the training so that, of course, maybe we can now have it as a model to start with it. Because if you say establish, then you, of course, you are calling for a new one. But we have police training schools all over the country. We pick one, just like one of my colleagues said. Then we look at it and see how we can modernize it and then make it function like, I mean, to be just one of these police special forces. I could call Mr. President, distinguished colleague, during Abacha, I think we have in the military, we have similar, special forces, which of course started working, of which it was even very, very strong. But I don't know the way how it just stopped. So I think it's very important, instead of establishing, just let's take one and see how we could combat it and then use it at least to be served as the special force trainer. Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
Thank you. Before I put the question, let me just ask Senator Linduma a couple of questions to educate me. We have this bill will establish the Nigerian Police Special Forces. Is that right? Okay. Now, these special forces will be an arm of the Nigerian police. Is that correct? Will it be an arm of the Nigerian police? It will be, okay.
Distinguished colleagues, as some of us pointed out, that there are currently institutions like that created by the police, like the mobile training camp in Limankara, Goza, which distinguished Senator Dimka rightly said. This bill, initially, what I captured for the bill is Nigerian Police Mobile Force and Special Forces Academy Goza. But I did it in consultation with the IGP, who recommended by his response here that it should rather be known as what I said now, Nigerian. Yes, yeah. No, it's combined. It's combined, an institution within. So that's why I said, at this second reading stage, the committee or this assembly will have the opportunity, having agreed that there is a need to have a special institution that will not only train the mobile police, but special forces can be trained because of the institutions, that is the mobile training camp Limankara, as Dibka pointed out, what it used to be. In fact, other countries, like African countries, were sending their police for training in that particular institution before now. The major problem they have, as in every institution, is the issue of funding, the issue of legality, the issue of what they need to do according to international standard. So if this establishment, even though under the police, will have a standing budget, will have a desired output, will have the ability to provide training to other institutions. Let me say here that what we are faced with now and we are trying to address by the Nigerian Army is, in fact, not constitutionally the work of the Nigerian Army, but it is the work of the police. But the challenge we have with the police now is they lack that special training. I can assure you, had it been we have special forces, the involvement of the Nigerian Army in addressing internal security especially will not be needed and will not be there. And these people will be there to affect it. Remember in those days, in those days, if we have civic disorder, it is the mobile police without AK-47 that...
Senator Ndume, I understand all of that. I just asked a question. I want to be educated. And you see, I've not cleared that. I want to be sure. First and foremost, I don't have any problem with the establishment of the Nigerian Police Special Forces Training School. I don't have any problem with that. But what I wanted to find out from you is that the Nigerian Police Special Forces, is it going to be an arm of the police? That's my first question. If that is the case, then the next question is this. Is it an arm of the police like you have the red beret, like you have the blue beret, and you have other... that's the question. Because if that is the case, then we may end up bringing a bill to establish the red beret, and as... Yes. Yes, after that, I will take you, leader. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Mr. President, the existence of special forces, Red Beret, okay. No, I told you, this is what. Mr. President, with all due respect, you are not supposed to listen to this opposition. No. No. So as I was saying, this institution will now be used to give special training to this what you call the Red Beret, the S5AVU, the special forces in the army if they want, the special forces in Navy. There is right now no institution or academy that provides
problem with that. No, the institution is okay. Nobody's questioning the institution. It is the special forces as by law an arm of the police. You know, that's creating a new agency altogether that I'm going to establish. But it's okay. It's okay. I think I have the answer. Thank you.
That, sir. All these observations is supposed to be made in the when the bill is referred to the committee, and then also when the public is heard and this thing is done. That is not the end of it. If we feel that the institution is not necessary, after that, when the committee reports, then it will bring out that.
Tefowomo, I will take you, but let me just get some clearance from this leader emeritus. Then Tefowomo, you make your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we are just belaboring this issue, unnecessarily. This is a very, very clear, straightforward bill. The bill wants to upgrade GOZA. It's a special forces training institution. It can serve not just the police, but all the other units of security agencies if they want to create special forces. Then part of that, he wants to also create a special unit within the Nigerian police, as special forces. By law. That now the police by law can create a special forces unit within the police, either to convert mobile force into that or to create another special force in addition to mobile. Now, that one can be seen very clearly. For example, in the United States, you have the Green Berets, you have Navy SEALs, you have all sorts of units, that are there contained within the army with specialized fields. They are even mountaineers. So the police should be allowed to create such special forces by this kind of bill, so that they can address special requests or special issues that arise in the area of policing and security-related issues in the Nigerian police and the country at large. So it's a very simple matter. So it's for our police now to understand within this context and then determine, whether this particular request is required or not. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was very clear. Tefowomo, and then I'll put the question.
Thank you, Senator Otazi, for making requests on my behalf. Thank you.
That's not correct, please. I called you on my own as the presiding officer.
Mr. President, I say a very big thank you to you. When we talk about Nigeria police in this country, at times I get so worried and disturbed. Because if you have traveled around the world and you see policing abroad, you'll be asking yourself questions that do we really have police in this country? If you look at our police colleges, if you look at the police college in Lagos, when you pass by, you feel ashamed that what is going on here. We have 774 local governments. Go to the police stations and see the structure there. It's so bad. When you go to a police station and you make a complaint, they will tell you they don't have pen, they don't have vehicles, they don't have petrol, they don't have anything. I think in this country we need a meaningful police reform. When we reform Nigerian police, this beautiful idea of having special forces will be part of it. Because if you go to the United Kingdom, immediately you see a British police, he will have a walkie-talkie on him. He will have ammunition, have everything. In Nigeria here, a police cannot communicate with each other. And it's so disturbing. So I would suggest if we can organize ourselves, let us go around. So let us set up a committee in the Senate here and go and look at our police stations. It's so disturbing. And we want to combat crime. We should not put the cart before the horse. Let us do the right thing and get it right in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fomo. I will now put the question. Those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. And those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Police Special Forces and the Nigerian Police Special Forces Training School and its governing council and for other related matters 2022, SB 846, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Police Special Forces and the Nigerian Police Special Force Training School and its governing council and for other related matters therewith 2022. Second reading taken. The bill is referred to the Committee on Police Affairs to report back in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The third order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Tangali, Benue State Establishment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 28th June 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Abba Patrick Moro to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Abba Moro, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Abba Moro. I represent the good people of the Benue South Senatorial District, and I am the sponsor of the bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani in Agatu local government area of Benue State. Mr. President, with your leave and the indulgence of my colleagues, I seek your permission to lead the debate.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I once again thank you for your indulgence for me to lead this debate on a very crucial bill. The bill, Mr. President, was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Tuesday, 28 June 2022. The intent of this bill, among other things, is to establish the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone to incentivize agricultural industrialization in Nigeria to harvest and process food and cash crops for our local consumption and for export purposes. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I remind us that Nigeria is a nation with a large tract of arable land and relatively cheap labor, and should ordinarily be able to feed itself sufficiently with excess for export. Sadly, Nigeria is a gross importer of food and agricultural products with a high inflation rate, extreme hunger, and a struggling agricultural sector. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I mention that in Nigeria, agricultural revolutions has always been at the center of most agro-economic policies of past governments, with the objective of diversifying the economy using crude oil as a springboard. However, gross inadequate implementation has impeded success of such policies, and the consequence is a monocultural economy that has made Nigeria an importer of even the tiniest agricultural product as toothpaste. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the establishment of the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State, will augment the value chain commodities across the country, which will entail the development and operation of agricultural industrial processing clusters in the zone to engender competitiveness in agro-industrial development, production, and processing that is critical to further unlock the potential of Nigeria's agriculture to improve food security, reduce post-harvest losses, create jobs, as well as wealth for Nigeria. May I add, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that with the coming of the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State, dry season farming will be encouraged in Nigeria to produce additional food in the dry season, where less food has been traditionally produced. In line with Order 76 of the Senate Standing Order rules with regards to bills, a copy of the compendium for the establishment of the Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State is hereby attached. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you all to support this inclusive and sustainable agricultural, industrial development bill and pass it accordingly. Thank you, Mr. President, for your audience.
Thank you, Senator Abamoro, Senator Otazi, and thereafter the Leader Emeritus, and thereafter Ibezim, in that order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Chukwuka Otazi, and I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. Mr. President, I rise to second and support this very, very important bill that has come for second reading. And I want to say that most distinguished Senator Abamoro has sufficiently and competently led the debate on this bill. Abamoro share a common border with my senatorial district. And we have a lot of things in common. We are agrarian. If you come, the food belt of both the northern and the southern Nigeria, you know, we share a lot. We are just on the same plane. We produce a lot of food. If you go now to Benue, oranges are everywhere. It will be like this till March next year. And there is no industries put in place to take care of that, to convert this into drinks, you know, that we should be consuming. If you move around, you see buckets of oranges at giveaway prices because there are no industries that are using them. There's no value chain, you know, to convert this and make sure that things work for our people. Now also, you go, this is the period of yam harvest. Between now and February next year, there will be a lot of yams everywhere. And there's nothing we are doing about that. You know, the same thing with cassava and all other farm crops that are produced in this area in large quantities. And this senator, you know, has come here today to, you know, interrogate our sensibilities, to ask us to wake up, arise to our occasion, and see what we are going to do by trying to get this bill, pass this into law, and establish an industry in Atakani that will take care of handling all these crops that we produce yearly without putting them to good use. During the period of harvest, things are very cheap. After that, everything goes. The farmers don't even have good market for their products. because people come there and buy them there. But if government is there helping to put things in place, I think something will work. So I'm in support that this bill be read the second time. Not only for Atakai, there are other food bears around the whole country. You know, we just have to look at where you have comparative advantage. Just like Benue have there. You put something there that will take care of such productions that are yearly. By so doing, food sufficiency will be there, food security will be there, and we'll move away from the monoculture you have said. You know, we are only talking of oil. We get into production so that we can make more money, exporting all this is and even taking care of ourselves. Having said that, Mr. President, I want to thank Abomoro for coming with this timeless bill that I know that will sail. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Leader. Yahya Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Yahya Abdullahi, representing Cabinet. I just want to briefly see this opportunity to inform the Senate that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has already launched a program on the creation of these agricultural processing zones across the country. I wouldn't mind if the bill passes this second reading so that it comes to the committee and we engage the Ministry of Agriculture in determining the value. But just to inform you that this particular program has already taken off. It has the backing of Islamic Development Bank, it has the backing of African Development Bank, and also has the backing of the Nigerian state. So very soon, these processing zones are going to take off. Now, the question of whether it's going to be one of them is going to be established in the location where the single Senator Abomoro wants is another issue. But I think I have no prejudice, you know, where these zones are established. The issue is the substance of what is going to be done, and I think the government is on the right footing, you know, in trying to establish this kind of program, you know, for the benefit of Nigeria and Nigeria's agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me accord respect to seniority here. So, Senator Alero, before we do Senator Ibizim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Muhammad Adamu Alero, representing the good people of Kebbi Central. Mr. President, this is a very important bill, and I want to support it, not only because I come from the area where agricultural products are produced, but because it has the potential of diversifying the economy of this country. Mr. President, as far back as 2009, when I was in the council, Federal Executive Council, the idea of agro-processing centers were brought at the Federal Executive Council, and the late Abba Ruma was the Minister of Agriculture. And about 6 zones, 6 agro-processing centers were established. Unfortunately, the succeeding government could not continue with that program. So, Mr. President, our farmers suffer a lot of losses due to lack of processing. In my village alone, during the harvest period, we produce 100 truckload of onions every day. And at times, one bag of onion will sell for 120,000 naira initially, when it starts. Then, when it reaches the peak, it will come down to maybe 10,000 naira. From 120,000 naira to 10,000 naira, simply because of lack of processing. If we are able to process the onions and keep it for some time, the price will be stable and farmers will get good price for whatever they produce. Mr. President, the same thing with the onion, the same thing with the tomatoes, The same thing with mangoes, the same thing with also other vegetables. So the setting up of agro-allied processing centers is very, very timely because Nigeria is now trying to diversify its economy. We're trying to move from monocultural economy, which is oil, to combination of agricultural products, solid minerals, and what have you. So I lend my support to this important bill, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
I will take Senator Ibezim and I'll put the question. Senator Ibezim, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Chukwuma Frank Ibezim. I represent Imo Senatorial District. Let me start by commending Senator Abamoro for introducing this bill. But to actually say that, having listened to the chairman, my chairman on agriculture, and Senator Alero, that it will be important for us to capture the 6 geopolitical zones as far as the free trade zones. We cannot overemphasize the importance of agriculture. And I can tell you that the introduction of this will reintroduce agriculture as the mainstay of our economy. And yes, we've tried so much to do quite some in agriculture, but the wastages that we're associated with yearly actually is greater than the total yield that we have in this country. By this bill, we will tackle this issue of wastages. So this bill is timely, apt, and whatever we can do as a Senate to encourage the passage of this bill as quickly as possible would help this country in no small measure. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Ibezim. I now put the question. Those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Nigeria Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Tanganyika, Benue State, and for other related matters, 2022, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Nigeria Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Tanganyika, Benue State, and for other related matters therewith, 2022, second reading taken. The bill is committed to the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the ad hoc committee on or to investigate oil lifting, theft, and the impact on petroleum production and oil revenues. Mr. President, we may wish to invite Senator Basi Albert Akman, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Basi Akman.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Senator Albert Basi Akman, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, I rise to move that this Senate do receive and consider the report of the ad hoc committee to investigate oil lifting, theft, and the impact on petroleum production and oil revenues. Mr. President, I so move.
Seconder. Senator Smart Adeyemi.
I rise to support the motion ably moved by Senator Albert Basi on the report of the ad hoc committee on the lifting and leakages in the oil sector. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Bassi, you may wish to lay the report and then consider it. You may not present it.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, this Senate, at the plenary sitting on Thursday, April 14, 2022, deliberated on the matter of the NTF, especially with regards to the revenue profile of the Nigerian economy. Nigerian crude oil production as at January 2020 stood at 2.13 million barrels per day. However, due to incessant pipeline sabotage to theft, the production fell as low as 1.38 million barrels per day. This was of great concern to everyone and discerning Nigerians and other stakeholders in the oil and gas industry, with consequential huge losses to revenue accruable to the Federation as well as devastating damages in the environment. Mr. President, we go to 2.1, which is basically like an industry review. The country's average technically reliable rate of oil production and condensate production stands at oil 1.9 million barrels per day, condensate 624,000 barrels a day. We bring the total.
Distinguished colleagues, please take your seats. Please take your seats. Senator Sani Musa, take your seat, please. Senator Binani, please take your seat.
OPEC quota for August and September 2022 stood at 1.8 million barrels per day. Item 2.3 shows clearly the average daily production for crude, which stands at, as stated there. And also item 2.4 also shows the average daily production for gas as well. The item 2.5 shows the production by terrain as follows. Deep offshore accounts for 37% of our total daily production. Shallow offshore also accounts for 29%, swamp 12%, and land 21%, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. As could be seen in 2.5, that item 2.6, and established, only 66% of the country's oil production can be effectively guaranteed, while 33% is affected by oil theft and the loss in production due to third-party access.
That's swamp and land, right? That's 3%.
And swamp and shallow deep offshore are not affected because of difficulty of access to criminals. 2.7, the country attained peak production of oil between 2004 and 2005, Mr. President, after which it fluctuated and has been declining steadily since then, with major causes as follows, as stated item 22.7, which means that oil theft has been a long-standing issue in the oil and gas industry, not just recently. The shortfall in production, including condensate, is mainly from onshore and swampy fields that are affected by pipeline sabotage and theft. Mr. President, the composition of this committee has stated in item 3.1. The methodology used by the ad hoc committee, Mr. President. The committee held several meetings to determine the methodology and the scope of work, and resolved to carry out this mandate by first engaging the most critical of the stakeholders because of the sensitive nature of this assignment. Embark on the-site visit to some of the major oil terminals
overflying the affected pipeline right of way before holding an investigative public hearing. Mr. President, item 5. The site visit commenced at the Shell Petroleum Company Bonny Oil and Gas Terminal in the morning of Monday, 13th of September, and Agbada Field Flow Station in the afternoon. Mr. President, the ad hoc committee members had to suspend their annual recess to carry out this assignment. After which he took us to the Ebok FSO terminal as well as Egina. In all of these facilities, the committee reiterated that the essence of the visit was to understand the process flow from the wellhead through the flow station and the pipelines or the strong lines to the terminal, to have insight into the nature of crude oil losses due to oil theft, and also the source of the conflicting figures attributed to the oil theft, so as to fully understand the enormity of the menace in preparation for this public hearing, which was held on September 21, 2020. At each of these facilities visited.
What page are you at?
At each of these facilities visited, the representatives of the various oil production companies made presentations on an overview of crude oil handling facilities from the wellhead, like we have stated earlier, up to the terminal, which is the terminal of export, together with the trunk lines, like the Nembe trunk lines, Trans-Nigerian pipeline, and the Eastern trunk lines, injecting into the terminal. Similarly, other processes involved in the export processes were also highlighted, and associated challenges were enumerated. It also continues down, Mr. President, but in item 5.5, Mr. President, one of the key observations during the site visit to the terminal was the discovery of dual and conflicting regulatory presence of both the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, and the Nigerian Downstream and Midstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority in one of the floating and offloading terminals in Ibok Oil Field, which is operated by Oriental Airlines. What we are saying here is that
okay.
With our recommendations. Even offshore, you have authorities there, which makes no sense. Yes, sir. The PIA vests the regulatory oversight of all upstream operations and activities, including crude oil terminals, whether integrated or otherwise, on the NUPRC, which is the Upstream Commission. That's the PIA. The committee was also made to understand that this dual regulatory oversight has become a source of conflicts and crisis among the staff of the two affected agencies, which has led to several complaints by the oil and gas producers on the terminals, and have had a negative impact on the ease of doing business by the industry's operators at the terminal. Whereas the PIA distinctively created two regulatory agencies for oil and gas industry: the NUPRC for the upstream sector and the NMDPRA for the midstream and downstream. Clearly distinct. Upstream is oil production up to the refinery. Midstream is the refinery and other processing facilities. Then downstream is the distribution. Clearly on the PIA. The authority was conferred with the mandate to regulate stand-alone export terminals, which means after the PIA has envisaged, and now that the industry has been opened up, anybody could come in to build a terminal. That's where the authority comes in, but not prior to the commencement of the PIA. Since the Act had envisaged the future development of stand-alone terminal for export of refined products for non-holders
of the petroleum mining lease or oil mining license, which hitherto was not available under the Terminal Dues Act, which prescribed the legal basis for the establishment of crude oil terminals only for holders of OML or OPL. Thus, the authority had no mandate whatsoever to regulate crude oil terminals, given that its mandate is strictly of midstream and downstream. What we are saying here, Mr. President, that all crude oil terminals are set up by the crude oil producer, which are upstream operators. That's what we are saying here. The Focados terminal, owned by Chevron, the Bonny terminal, owned by Shell.
That's by the PIA. Their venture partner. Prior to the investigative public hearing, the committee placed an advert, of course. On Wednesday 21st, the committee held its public hearing and engaged with various stakeholders to interrogate submissions, discover gaps and misalignment, and harmonize perspective for deeper understanding of the issues relating to crude oil theft, actual theft volume, revenue loss, its negative impact on the country's revenue, and the environment of affected oil producing communities. Item 7 on page 9, the committee's observation and findings, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. From the site visits to major oil production points and terminals, the committee made the following observations and findings. The committee observed the state-of-the-art production processes and oil and gas accounting systems at the Genia FPA SO and the EBOC FSO visited offshore. Offshore operations are not hindered whatsoever or affected by theft, pipeline vandalization, and third-party interference. The crude oil theft and pipeline vandalization are limited to only onshore and swamp operators due to the peculiar vulnerabilities. There is plethora of government entities or representatives present at the export terminals with duplication of roles and responsibilities, leading to conflicting figures being churned out. The government and other agencies include Customs, Immigrations, NDLA, INCAP, Port Health, Trobel Allington, Nigerian Limited, representing Nigerian Port Authority, and Inspectorate and CFAX, also representing Ministry of Finance. The configuration of the existing oil production facilities in onshore, offshore, and shallow water is integrated in nature because under the Petroleum Industry Act, Petroleum Act of 1969, operations were designed to produce, process, and export oil and gas. Hence, export terminals tend to form a contiguous part with the production and processions infrastructure process, thus making activities from the wellhead to the terminal part of the upstream operations. Major export facilities like Bonny and Focados terminals have been shut down for a very long period of time, over 7 months, due to pipeline vandalization and oil theft. Because once they pump from the facility on its way to the terminals, they are all stolen. So it was all shut down. And once it's shut down, and production is also shutting because of lack of evacuation. Because of this, the oil companies are forced to shorten production since bulk of what is produced is not received at the export terminal due to rampant cases of third-party interference, illegal connections on the pipeline, leading to huge production losses over the years. So what we're saying here is that most of the so-called oil theft and losses were not due to, they were not stolen, but just because for lack of evacuation of the product, all the wells are shutting, and that shutting results in a shortfall of our production, over 700-800 barrels per day. They were not stolen. But a lot. The stealing led to the shutting in of production. That's what I'm saying. Yes, yes.
So I said the oil companies are forced to shorten production, since bulk of what is produced is not received at the export terminal due to rampant theft, leading to huge loss in production over the years. These shorting wells have seriously affected the gas supply to Nigerian LNG by 30 to 40%, since most of the produced gas are associated with crude oil production. This shorting of wells, Mr. President, has affected supply of gas to LNG, because most of the gas are produced with crude, alongside the crude. That's what they call associated gas. Production shorting at Forcados terminal was due to leakage observed along the loading bore and third-party interference on trunk lines. Sometimes you could...
Third-party interference meaning theft. Use the language as we understand it. Thank you.
The intervention of NNPC Limited and its partners, SPDC, this terminal commenced crude oil operations, that's export, just late, about 2-3 weeks ago, which has restored over 500,000 barrels into the country's system, the production system. So NNPC has done well in that regard. For Bonny Terminal, we used to export 9 tankers of 1 million barrels a month. That's over 9 million barrels. It has not witnessed any exports since the 10th of April this year, which is quite unfortunate. But I'm happy to announce that just about 4 days ago, that terminal received the first 89,000 barrels of crude for exports. So also the efforts that have yielded results on the Forcados terminal is also yielding results in the Bonny terminal. So we are almost at the verge of restoring full normalcy in the country's crude oil export, which will mean more money to the Federation account. Oil and gas producers are using the Bonny export terminals. At some point, we resorted to barging the products, that's crude, for export, but was rejected by the NNPC in order to safeguard the huge investment made on the terminal and to prevent balkanization of the Bonny light crude grid, which is a major selling point in the international oil market. Heads holding oil and gas, operator of Agbada field, for example, have not exported a barrel of crude since April 2022, since its only evacuation source is through the Trans-Nigerian pipeline up to the Bonny terminal. What we saw was very devastating, Mr. President and my colleagues. Because if you were fly the entire zone, you could see what has happened to this country. At some point, we were even wondering, why can't the country, why can't it be a capital punishment? Because the devastation was so huge beyond human understanding. The devastation as a result of the pipeline, the devastation is terrible. The environmental issues are horrible. I wonder how we'll come out of this in the long term. Ibok terminal operated by Oriental Oil and Gas, offshore Akwa Ibom, have been exporting without any disruption and theft because it is in a shallow offshore. This is basically due to its offshore location, which is presently difficult to access by criminals. And this is a fully integrated facility offshore. But we have the authority on board there with the Upstream Commission. We are coming with our recommendations. There was no issue observed at the Gina, a fantastic facility operated by Total. However, the production is on the decline. And as we're told, efforts are being made to increase production. Condensates are the least affected by sabotage and thefts, since the highest condensate producing field are Agbami and Akpo are located offshore. That's why you find almost all the oil and gas companies now trying to go deep offshore because of these issues. The country's inability to meet its OPEC quota between January and July this year was due to pipeline vandalization and oil theft, which resulted in major shutting of wells and fields due to lack of evacuation by the producers. This was mainly along the Bonny and Brass terminal operated by Shell and NNPC. On a monthly basis, there is reconciliation between the various wellheads and flow station measurement to ascertain reservoir performance management, and between flow stations and the terminal measurement to determine actual losses, which form the basis for estimating crude oil theft. It should be stated here that losses that occur due to shrinkage and pipeline technical losses are very insignificant, which means that the major loss is due to stealing by these criminals. In respect of the lack metering units, the committee observed the non-compliance by some operators on the flow lines and terminals, dealt by relying on the end-to-end reconciliation and out-turn verification of volumes, while the NUPRC continues to impose penalties on these defaulters. In our recommendations, we recommend that it should be more stiffer in their
bottom line, they are refusing to use the metering.
That the commissions have now accepted, agreed to deploy the metering systems across all the terminals and flow stations, because there cannot be a judgment in their own case, as is applied all over the world, most especially Saudi Arabia. The country has lost over $2 billion to oil theft between January and August this year alone. The country has lost over $2 billion to oil theft between January and August this year alone, which lost revenue ordinarily would have supported the country's fiscal deficit and budget implementation. How then can you attract the much-needed investment when the investors come produce and you are stealing everything? So it defeats the entire purpose of the PIA, and most especially the host community issues. Between April and September 2022, security interventions has led to the seizure and arrest of 11 crude oil vessels, 30 speedboats, 179 wooden boats, 37 trucks, as well as arrested over 122 suspects of crude oil theft. Also, 959 metal tanks, 737 ovens, 452 dugout pits, 342 reservoirs, and 355 cooking pots were destroyed. Also, 207 pumping machines, 17 sophisticated welding machines, 6 power generators, and 2 automatic filling machines were equally recovered. NNPC, in collaboration with both industry regulators, other partners, and government security agencies, have deployed security architecture to help restore, guarantee production in the eastern, central, and western production corridors. Mr. President, if you fly these areas, you will see even the connection from the helicopter. You could see it from the helicopter. And what we also observed was that even the right-of-ways were covered with wheat and all that, so you cannot even see the pipe lines to ensure effective surveillance. So these lines and these junctions are known to only the criminal because they have operated in those terrains over a period.
But when you flew over, you saw them. And the military also fly over every now and then. Okay.
The committee found and frowned at the interference of the Federal Ministry of Transport in the deployment of advanced crude oil cargo declaration solution, which should be the responsibility of the NUPRC in alignment with its mandate as the technical and commercial upstream regulator under the PIA. This used to be what they used to do before, but the PIA has certainly scrapped
because most of those acts were actually repealed and their functions terminated and transferred to NUPRC, but they are still forcing themselves. It's very unfortunate, Mr. President. And the committee also frowned at the presence of two regulators at the crude oil export terminals when the PIA has clearly designated limits of the two petroleum regulators' respective oversight. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority regulates the midstream and downstream sector. And the midstream starts at the refining point or the process facility point, like the LNG, like the refineries, like the petrochemical plants. That's where the midstream starts. But from the upstream up to that point, it's for upstream. It's for the commission. Because you don't even have the technical competences and the capacity to regulate upstream operations. And the real essence of setting up the midstream authority was to deepen domestic gas utilization, to focus on the downstream sector, to enable us to take advantage and earn more, get our refineries working. It's quite unfortunate. But we must do the right thing, Mr. President. And at no time did the PIA contemplate the authority to perform crude oil terminal activities or regulations, which is an upstream regulatory function, and should necessarily include hydrocarbon accounting. Well, this is why we are losing our revenue. And crude oil revenue assurance and consolidation, as these are independent and contingent on crude oil terminal regulation. Crude oil, being a product of upstream, in line with its definition under Section 318 of the PIA, each terminal can only be under the regulation of the upstream commissions. For optimal hydrocarbon accounting, ease of doing business, which is the bane of all the complaints of the industry stakeholders today. They don't know who to report to any longer. When the PIA has streamlined outlined upstream, report to upstream, midstream, downstream, report to midstream authority. The PIA also went ahead to even ensure that if you are an upstream operator and you want to operate in the midstream and downstream, you must set up a different entity to operate in the midstream and downstream. That's what we did to this PIA. There should not be any ambiguity whatsoever. Each terminal can only be under the regulation of the Upstream Commission for optimal hydrocarbon accounting. We have said that. On inquiry from the staff of both the Upstream Commission and the Midstream Authority at the terminal as at the cost of the dual regulatory presence, the committee was shown a letter dated 3rd of February 2022 from the Honourable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, pursuant to the Minister's powers under Section 3 sub 4 of the PIA, that the Minister shall give general policy directives to the Commission on matters concerning upstream petroleum operations and to the authority on matters relating to midstream and downstream petroleum operations, as well as matters relating to the cooperation among the two entities in line with the provision of this Act. And the Commission and the authority shall comply with such directive. This is policy directive, not to interpret the PIA. Not to interpret the PIA. Delineating the scope of regulatory authority of NUPRC and MMDPRA over terminal operators. That's the letter. In line with the provisions of the PIA. The committee was also shown a second letter by the minister, dated 7th of July this year, which strangely somersaulted and issued a counter directive on the same delineation of the scope of regulatory authority of NUPRC and NMDPRA over terminal operations, in conflict with the extant provisions of the PIA, particularly Section 7 sub EE, Section 8 sub D, 32, 2, and 174A. The committee notes that Section 7 EE of the PIA
vests the power to regulate existing terminal, and issue certificate of quantity and quality on NUP as Section 7EE of the PIA provides, and I quote, the Commission shall issue certificate of quantity and quality for crude oil and natural gas and petroleum products from integrated operations and crude oil export terminals established prior to the effective date. And the Commission shall have the power to monitor and to regulate operations of crude oil export terminals, and the responsibility of weight and measure at crude oil export terminal shall cease to exist from the effective date. That's what the law says. Section 8D. Section 8D of the PIA provides that, and I quote, where in situ facilities or fixed or floating platforms provide for fully integrated upstream and midstream petroleum operations, the Commission shall be in charge. So one begins to wonder, what is the authority doing in an offshore integrated, because FPSO is an offshore integrated terminal, FSO is an offshore integrated terminal. The Commission shall be in charge of such integrated operations, and petroleum operations shall be considered integrated where there is a joint use of utilities, which means you produce, you process at the same time, exclusively for the upstream and midstream operations. Conversely, Section 174A and Section 32.2 gave the authority the powers to regulate future, and standalone export terminals, and issue certificate of quantity and quantity in that regard, as replicated below Section 174A, except in accordance with an appropriate license issued by the authority. A person shall not undertake the following activities. That's what we're bringing out there. Which means that the law in itself anticipates that there will be a future investor who will come in without owning an oil license to set up a terminal, because we have opened up system with the PIA. Such a terminal will be regulated by the authority, because it has nothing to do with an upstream production facility. Very clear, no ambiguity whatsoever. In order to support implementation of Section 174 of the PIA, in order to support that, support that section, yes, cited above, for the stand alone, to be established after the effective date, not terminals that were established before the effective date of the take-up of the PIA. The National Assembly did a fantastic job on this PIA. I was impressed. The function of the authority shall include committees. The letter, therefore, section page 17, and then item 7.25.7. The letter of 7 July should therefore be jettisoned, as the PIA takes precedence over administrative directives, especially since there exists no ambiguity regarding the oversight responsibility of the two regulators of the oil and gas sector regarding terminal operations regulatory oversight. Committee recommendations. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, against the backdrop of the above observations and pursuant to the desire of the Senate to clarify some of the aforementioned issues that may be causing a conflict, creating crisis, or adversely affecting the ease of doing business for the oil and gas producers, with the consequential negative effect on revenue assurance, pending any legitimate amendment. Because, Mr. President, why we are saying this is that any attempt to amend the PIA now will send the wrong signal to the international community. That was why we held back the amendment of the request of Mr. President to increase the board membership on the two agencies, because it actually sent the wrong signal. We must allow it to see if we can attract the desired
investment before anything is done. The Honorable Minister's letter dated 7th of July 2022 as attached, and the directive therein are in conflict with the extant provisions of the PIA, particularly Section 7EE, 8D, 3211, and 174 sub A, and should
that's recommendation 1, right?
As the PIA takes precedence over administrative directive, which are inconsistent with its provisions.
Directives were given pursuant to the law, to the PIA itself. Isn't that a matter of interpretation?
Under the interpretation section of the law, it defines upstream as upstream operations up to the refining point. And from the refining point is where the midstream starts. Then downstream takes care of the distributions and pipeline network. Yes, it's very, very clear. There's no ambiguity. No ambiguity whatsoever. No ambiguity whatsoever. The NUPRC should resume full regulatory oversight of all existing crude oil terminals in Nigeria, including integrated terminals, crude oil pipelines, issuance of loading, clearing, and processing of all export permits, in line with Section 8D of the PIA, as regulatory activities at the crude oil terminals are independent and contingent. As intended in the PIA, the authority statutorily should concentrate fully on regulating the midstream and the downstream activities from refineries, mid and downstream gas infrastructure, supply and storage and distribution of refining products, petrochemicals, virtual pipelines, and retailing facilities, in line with the provisions of the PIA, including...
Are you rewriting the law? That's the law already. So why are we doing this? The law is very clear. Okay.
That's why we are quoting the sections, that we are not rewriting the law. There should be an immediate streamlining of the agencies present at the terminals. You have to streamline it. Because we have reached an online real-time solution where all those agencies are not even some of them have been there for the past 40 years. Not doing anything there. There should be immediate streamlining of the agencies present at the terminals in line with the relevance of their PIA delineated upstream and midstream statutory functions. While NUPRC should strengthen deployment of digital accounting procedures, such as advanced cargo declaration, digital integration of lagged units at the crude oil terminal.
Do we have that right now? But you said you strengthen it. They should deploy it. They should deploy it, not strengthen it. Because we don't even have it right now. Am I right? No, we don't want manual. It's digital, you said. Okay.
Of deploying that. There is a process of deploying that. It used to be manual before, but now everything has gone digital. Yes. LACT is a measuring system that measures the volume of crude that flows on a pipe line. Yes. NUPRC should fast-track the upgrade, that's what we're talking about here, of the National Production Monitoring System to enable real-time monitoring of flow stations and terminal activities. NUPRC should expedite the deployment and strict enforcement of the advanced cargo oil declaration solution for detection of advanced cargo crude oil, yes. Yes. For detection of mitigation of illegal movement of vessels, to ensure adequate revenue generations and optimal crude oil accounting, thus enhancing revenue generation for the Federation.
NUPRC must ensure all vessels coming into the Nigerian waters for the purpose of crude oil lifting adhere strictly with the advanced cargo declaration, in line with international best practice and in collaboration with Nigerian Navy and other relevant statutory agencies. In line with they have a presidential directive on this already.
Please stop there 1 second. Is there any sanction provided when you don't comply with this in the law?
Yes, there are penalties. That
in the extant law. Okay. 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 Go ahead.
Then 8.10. The Ministry of Transport should immediately withdraw its interference. 8.7. I've done that now. I've done that. That's what the Senate President said. The Ministry of Transport should immediately withdraw its interference with the advanced cargo declaration on wet petroleum cargoes in alignment with the statutory mandates on the NUPRC under the PIA. NUPRC should summarily conclude engineering audit of existing LAC units and flow meters for efficient regulation and monitoring for integrity assurance and standardization of crude oil measurement systems in the Nigerian upstream oil and gas operations. The Bureau of Public Procurement should expedite all processes of procurement for NUPRC. It's been hanging over the past 7 months or 8 months. This LAC system, because they've gotten the president's approval to deploy LAC system in all the terminals. We must be able to say how much do we produce and not waiting for an oil company to say this is what I produce. That's what's happening all over the world. Yes.
9. 8.
Should expedite all processes of procurement for NUPRC to ensure immediate deployment of an online real-time monitoring system by the Commission across all upstream oil and gas production platforms to ensure accurate measure of production volumes by the producers. This is what is happening in Saudi Arabia. Government understand in total to the very minimum what is produced at every production point. Curtailing crude oil types should be a collective responsibility. Thereby, well-meaning members of the public must be encouraged to report illegal activities and transactions in stolen crude oil that may come to their knowledge from any part of the world. Nigeria should seek international financial collaboration to check illegal letters of credit, because this cannot be a cash item. To check illegal letters of credit used to fund the sales and the purchase of Nigerian stolen crude. As such illegal crude sale can only be transacted through the world financial system. The Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream must ensure effective and periodic oversight of the upstream petroleum sector. We are doing that. We just have to do, sir. I will not be here in the next Senate by the grace of God. The clerk of the Senate should communicate the resolutions herein to the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the Nigerian Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC Limited, International Indigenous Operator of Oil Companies, and other relevant agencies for immediate adoption and implementation. And all, we include all. The committee recommends that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria do approve its recommendations accordingly. Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream and the ad hoc committee wish to express our sincere appreciation to the President of the Senate, His Excellency Senator Dr. Ahmed Lawan, the leadership of the Senate, the DSP and its leadership, and distinguished senators for giving us the opportunity to be of service to
to our dear country at this time in history. Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
Thank you, Chairman Akpan Bassi. Senator Yai, you raised your hand earlier. Oh, are you a member? No. Yes.
Excellency, as a member, at least if there are additional information to be added to the submission to buttress on some of his points, I should be allowed. Based on that, exactly. So, no, it's a report that is worked on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to appreciate.
You are protected. Go ahead.
Mr. President, let me start by thanking this Senate for giving us the opportunity to work on this particular motion. This was a motion at the instance of the medium-term expenditure framework that was submitted to this Senate, where extensive complaints was made concerning theft of crude oil, and that in the wisdom of the leadership, we set up this ad hoc committee to look into the gray areas why we have these continuous oil thefts and leakages within the oil and gas industry. Yeah, primarily, yes, oil theft. Mr. President, what I'm adding to this report is to please let us implement the PIA as it is for now, even if there are amendments that will come after, but as it is. Now, NNPC is not giving freedom to those two committees that was set up, the NUPRC and the one for the downstream. If they are not giving them, as it is, I'm coming, sir, as it is, NNPC still sit as a boss for those two agencies, and that is not what the PIA is. PIA is saying. The PIA is saying that those two agencies has come out and they are true, they are independent, and they should be truly independent. NNPC is now a company to compete like any other oil and gas company. But what do we have? We have an NNPC that still superintend over the two committees. That's not the PIA. That is not the PIA. So, in going forward, with all this recommendation, NUPRC should do this, should do that, should do this, that is contained in this report, we need to implement PIA as it is. Fully. With no reservation, observation. Fully. It's very important. If we must stem the tide of this oil theft that we are witnessing within our geographical landscape. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Boroface, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to congratulate the committee, the ad hoc committee, for submitting this very exhaustive report and very elucidating with respect to the problems confronting the oil industry. And I want to align myself with the suggestion of Senator Solomon Adiola. I think maybe Senate can organize a sort of workshop bringing all interested parties together on the implementation of PIA. Because I think if the NNPC continue to usurp the mandate of the upstream, midstream, and downstream, we are not going to move away from the chaos which we have experienced in the past. Mr. President, I have had cause to interact with some people in the upstream, the leadership, to be precise. And I am surprised that the procurement, public procurement agency has continued to withdraw the type of approval you have given to this authority. And almost bordering on sabotage. And I think something has to be done that that approval is given to the upstream regulatory authority to be able to procure the necessary gadget that it needs. Secondly, Mr. President, the report mentioned the issue of too many agencies. Unfortunately, you did not specify. Because that's one of the problems. Every agency wants to be there to have their own cake. So we have to do
Cake. Because the reason I ask this word cake is, you see, for some of us, I'm sorry, you speak, I know you have the floor. Let me just, maybe you continue with it. You see, some of us, we felt in the past that the more people, the more agencies you have in each of those export terminals could act as a check on just one agency or a few people making deals on the cake, if I got you right. If it is just one agency, as chairman had indicated earlier, to say, oh, maybe it is the agency, the regulatory agency alone. Maybe the presence of the authority, maybe the presence of the Ministry of Transport is that as a check on they exclusively doing things that they ought not to do. So I mean, maybe the presence could act as a check. I'm not so sure, but please develop it.
Then that is what it should be under normal circumstances. But in a situation that is, there's a lot of corruption. We know there's corruption. Up to now, as I said, to really measure the amount of oil we pump is difficult. And we have Nigerian agencies that are there to monitor it. So something is wrong. And so there is a sort of compromise of the system. And that is why we say he should let us know.
Wouldn't that compromise be worse if it's only one agency that is superintending over this? Notwithstanding the provisions of the law, by the way, I understand, you know, you're interpreting the PIA. But you see, my understanding is this. As a consequence of issues that arose during the debate on the MTF, it was primarily about oil theft. How do we address this so we can get more revenue? That was why this committee was set up. But I do understand, and I respect the fact that you've done a very, very comprehensive and a holistic job here, and I commend you for that. But let us not lose sight right there of what challenge, what menace we try to address. You know? And that one, personally, I'm not supposed to give my opinion, but I'm not convinced that when you have more than one agency or a body there, creates a problem that leads to the challenge in that sector. But be that as it may, the leader, you have the floor.
Of the center of this report, because it mentioned many agencies, and before he highlighted it, they must have seen in their report that the many agencies are causing confusion and creating avenue for corruption. And that's why I said it should have named some of these agencies, maybe for good reason. Okay, so if that is not a problem, he will not highlight it. So we must know that, and if they need to reduce, we should reduce. I know the Navy is involved. Mr. President, you know we have met, the leadership have met several times with the security agency and including the Navy and intelligence on this oil theft. And the reports we got shows that there's so many interested parties, let me put that way, causing confusion. So I think the report should be more detailed in that area. We know those who are responsible for this confusion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Barao Jibrin, Kano North. Mr. President, permit me to commend this committee, the Article Committee, for a job well done. The committee has done an excellent job, and I congratulate them, and also commend them. But Mr. President, as always, our problem in this country goes beyond, putting up reports like this. Most of the times we churn out very, very beautiful reports, but the will to implement such a report becomes a problem. The political will does not exist. I hope, Mr. President, that we don't allow this report to remain in the cooler. Effort should be put to make sure that this report is fully implemented, particularly because it affects something that is the mainstay of our economy. It affects the bedrock of our life, our national economy. This oil debt, apart from insecurity that has become a serious challenge to us, the issue of oil debt has become something that is creating serious problem to our nation, to our economy, to all of us. Therefore, all efforts must be put, all hands must be on deck to make sure that we implement this report fully. Now, technology creates a solution to almost all aspects of our lives. Therefore, as recommended by this committee, we must bring technology to bear. It is stated in, I don't want to go into the entire report because it's bulky, but when you go to 8.10, it is stated that in Saudi Arabia, you have this real-time monitoring of the entire system. This is not rocket science. Why can't we employ the same technology in this country? We must do this. And even the issue raised by Senator Boniface about how our security agencies have been compromising in dealing with this situation. When you have technology, it will put, it will put it on the spot. We will watch them. We see what they are doing. Technology will help us to tell us, will help by telling us this is what your people are doing. Therefore, Mr. President, we should make sure that all efforts are put to make sure that this was implemented. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Piafi, please.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, I feel so elated to be part of this discussion today and to commend the committee for this wonderful job they've done. This is like the life of Nigeria, and I'm glad that we're sitting here today to discuss these issues and make solutions that will bring lasting, that will bring an end to oil theft and, of course, increase our revenue and to push this country forward. One of the things I'd like to speak about first is we start from Bureau of Public Procurement, because as a member of this committee, I know that the NMPs, most of the time to interact with the authorities, they talk about the delays they're experiencing from Public Procurement Office to acquire the equipment. We need this technology for us to be able to proceed to where we want to get to. So I think that one of the things we need to correct in all the recommendations is to put timelines. So we need to give Bureau of Public Procurement timelines. A situation where procurement issues are staying 7 months, 8 months in the Bureau of Public Procurement is unacceptable. So we need to start with that, and then of course, by the time Bureau of Public Procurement releases all the procurement issues outstanding in the oil industry, then we can now give timelines to 8.8 immediate, so that NUPRC should summarily conclude engineering and audit of existing lab units. If they don't have the procurement approval, they won't be able to do that. If you go further down, the same, almost all the recommendations, we need to have timelines attached to them. Like for NUPRC to expedite deployment of strict enforcement of advanced crude oil cargo declaration solution for detection and migration of illegal movement of vehicles. They need technology. Bureau of Public Procurement is delaying the procurement process. If you go on to the tracking to fast track the upgrade of National Production Monitoring System, you'll be shocked that, again, the procurement process is delaying that. Having said all of that, we need to first of all attack the Bureau of Public Procurement to fast-track procurement process and put timelines to everybody thereafter. The issue of having multiple agencies supervising, it can easily be stopped when technology has been fully deployed, and it's only then we can do that. And of course, I want to note that the committee didn't say anything about the interference of the Ministry of Transport. So to add that as our recommendation, that the Ministry of Transport should be stopped to deploy the Advanced Crude Cargo Declaration Solution, which now the sole responsibility of NUPRC. Yeah, so having said that, I'd like to also say that timelines should be given to the clerk of the Senate as to when these letters should be written and when they should be delivered. And I'd like to once again commend the committee for a job well done. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, you see, I'm Senator Chukwuka Okazi, and I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. Mr. President, I want to join colleagues to commend the committee and its chairman for dramatizing the presentation of the report very well. Mr. President, when we discussed MTF, I'm one of those people that raised the issue that led to the constitution of this ad hoc committee. I raised a lot of issues here. I'm happy that this committee touched some of them, but there are still others that are not in this report, Mr. President. And I want us to take note of them. If we want to be conclusive in solving the problem of the thievery and the collusion by the agencies that are supposed to make things work and have made things difficult, as it were, for this country. Number one, in order trying to make sure that we get adequate returns on the crude oil lifting in this country, is that we must involve the Nigerian Extractive Transparency Initiative, NEITI. NEITI handles the issue about our liftings. They are independent, and they give report to the Senate. Periodically, by law, NEITI gives us information of what's happening in the extractive industries in the country, and especially the upstream. We have to integrate the activities here. We must get at them to help make sure that things work for ourselves here. NEITI helps us not only what's happening here, what the report handles. The issue of the advanced cargo declaration you talked about is NEITI. NEITI coordinated, because NEITI is the law that brought NEITI is a statute of universal application, because you have EET. From there, we put our own and put N and made it our own. If we get the NEITI to coordinate with the AIT, most of where others, especially in UK, where we drew our inspiration, it will be very easy to know the ocean-going vessels that come into our country here, because that's the trouble. You must know the ocean-going vessels that bearing crude, that come here, leave their country empty, and come back to Nigeria filled with the crude oil and move. If we were able to coordinate these 2 points, it's going to help in handling this issue. But if we just want to say, okay, they're already in Nigeria, whether you look at their papers, whether they are fake, letters of credit, whether they are fake or not, is superficial. So I want this committee to look into this improper and in order to solve this problem of the thieving of our oil here. NEITI must be part and parcel of it. Because NEITI, because of their nature, coordinates with the other extractive industries, the other agencies that take over the extractive industries outside of our shores here, where all these ships are coming from. If we're able to integrate this in properly, we'll say we will be solving the problem. The other issue I also want to say is that anywhere you see the ants, anywhere you see the ants cluster, you must know that there is sugar there. There is sugar there. Anywhere you see the ants in your house, all of a sudden you see ants clustering at an area, you must know that there's a honey there or there is sugar. And when you say that the plethora of government agencies, government entities, or representatives present at export terminal, that's where the honey and that's where the sugar is. And that's why they are there. If we do not have the political will, or where the president is the minister for petroleum, working through Minister of State for Petroleum, and they continue giving divergent opinions. Today, the minister will write one, tomorrow he will somersault. We are not going to solve this.
But technology and metering will address that, right? And metering, it will address that. So,
are not solving the problems. Thank you so much.
Urohide and Derata Spanda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senatorial District. Mr. President, let me lend my voice to in commending the ad hoc committee that came up with these recommendations to the Senate. Mr. President, I want to take us back to what the contributions that were made the day MTF was raised on these issues, that led to the constitution of this ad hoc committee. You will recall that the three committees of upstream, downstream, and gas all alluded to the same problem that they were having with NNPC. Because the PIA, the way it is with its provisions, is as though NNPC Limited has not understood it. But if you remember, Mr. President, that day, what some of us said was that even after the constitution of an implementation committee by the president, that implementation committee came and met with all the committees, and they set the modalities for the operation of the PIA. Today, this recommendation, majority of it that has come, is still the same, points to the same fact that even the regulatory body set up, that is the commission and the authority, they are still conflicting in their functions. Even the minister that was part and parcel of the evolution of the PIA is equally issuing administrative directives, contrary to the position of the PIA. As a parliament, what must we do? Mr. President, as a parliament, we must ensure that all the parties, all the stakeholders, they are called to understand the positions of the PIA. Otherwise, we are still going to have this problem. Whether it is different of crude oil, whether it is the basic function of the regulatory bodies, or even the Ministry of Transport that is not even supposed to be there, it is important that they all come back and they are taught the provisions of the PIA. Otherwise, we are still going to be having this problem. What is really happening when it comes to the operations upstream that is leading to the stealing of crude is the fact that all the agencies that are supposed to perform their roles are not doing it. Yes, technology will come in, but even with the operation of technology, and we do not have the right person standing there, the negative effect of stealing our crude oil will still continue. But I believe, first, as a parliament, let us make it mandate. The only way we will do it, to cut all the agencies
all of them that are involved, including the Minister of State for Petroleum, let them understand the provisions of the PIA. That is very important. They don't understand it the way it is today. That's why I have really conflicting. All the recommendations made, majority of them all border on conflicting rules. What they are doing in upstream, downstream, and upstream, they don't understand. NNPC Limited, they're supposed to be playing this role to know that it's not a commercial entity, does not understand. They tell you now they are autonomous, they cannot be supervised by any committee of the National Assembly. Please, I believe if we do this as a parliament, we will succeed in a long way in getting the solutions that we need. Thank you.
Can I go?
Akin Lure. Okay, then Smart Adeyemi, they'll go to recommendations.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name remains Senator Akin Lure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the ad hoc committee set up by the Senate of Federal Republic of Nigeria to look into this oil theft. Mr. President, the recommendations of the committee were structured and straightforward to the point. Mr. President, from this report, the action of the Minister of Petroleum Resources has caused problems. Because when the minister issues out directives to confuse the two agencies, NUPRC has its own function, the midstream and downstream commission also have its own functions. But now, the directive of minister has made two of them to have conflicting roles. Mr. President, the position of the National Assembly is for observance of the strict provision of the PIA. Let NUPRC be given its independence to operate PIA as it is approved by the National Assembly. And the downstream sector to limit their own sector. Mr. President, the essence of confusing these people is because of some people still want it to be business as usual. And that is what is causing loss of significant revenue of the federal government. Mr. President, my position with the position of the Senate and with the committee is that all these 14 recommendations should be approved with timeline for all those agencies like BPP. BPP is also collaborating with some people to ensure that the action of Mr. President of the nation, who has good intention for this country, by signing PIA to law, is not achieved. We are supporting Mr. President of the nation to ensure that the content, the profit of this PIA will bring the needed revenue required to move forward in this country.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. Point of order, leader.
Mr. President, point of order 8. In line with this order 8, I want to move that Senate should sit beyond 2 o'clock.
Utazi. You so move, Utazi.
Want to second the motion as moved by the leader. So second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Smart Adeyemi.
Mr. President,
please be very brief if you don't mind, so we can go to recommendations. Thank you.
Akin Lure, I think you actually spoke my heart. Mr. President, one of the major achievements of the 9th Senate was the passage of the PIA. And the essence of that bill was to minimize, if not to eradicate, corruption in the oil sector. Nigeria is not a banana republic where there's no law. When we pass law here, bills here, and the president has sent to it, and they are not obeyed, I think it is better for us to stay at home and allow them to govern themselves at the executive level. It makes no sense when we stay here hours and pass bill, meditate, and the laws are ascended to, and somebody decides to just govern the way he likes. Mr. President, those who are in power should remember that tomorrow they will not be in power. When you look at this report, the bottom line is deliberate misappropriation of resources through deliberate misleading and contradictions that are not actually in the PIA. Mr. President, there was separation of functions and duties of both the upstream and the downstream in order to enhance the economy. One of the major problems confronting the economy today was as a result of poor management of the oil sector. And the PIB was to address these abnormalities and misappropriation. But look at the bill, the law in place, they are not obeyed, and nobody is talking. Now, Mr. President, let me just say this and conclude that Nigerians will decide as to whether they want this country to survive or this country to sink, especially those who are in power. Mr. President, look at today, look at the rate of crude oil today. What is Nigeria making out of it? We are making out of it because nothing out of it because some people are keeping the money abroad, and you say we should borrow money. Should we wait until when Nigerians start killing people and demonstrating? Where is the resources? Where is it going? Mr. President, who are the people stealing the oil?
They are stealing the oil. They're not keeping the money, but they're stealing the oil. And we are addressing it now.
Mr. President, oil. They are not the poor people on the street. They are the elite who are in power. Who are the people stealing oil in Nigeria? Is it the poor man on the street? Who are the people carrying crude oil in Nigeria? The law is there, the law is not obeyed. Why are we here? If laws will not be obeyed, there is no reason for Parliament to be in existence. Mr. President, there is no reason. If you are making laws and the laws are not obeyed, then what's the essence of sitting here? This PIB was to address all these problems. Today, look at both the upstream and downstream conflicting instructions. And that is what we are witnessing now. I want to commend you for your courage in articulating these problems. History will take care of all of us. I submit, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recommendation 1 on page 17. That the Honorable Minister's letter dated 7th of July 2022 as attached, and the directives therein are in conflict with the extant provisions of the PIA, particularly Section 7, EE, 8D, 32(2), and 174A, and should therefore be jettisoned. As a law, the PIA takes precedence over administrative directives which are inconsistent with its provisions. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 2, that the NUPRC should resume full regulatory oversight of all existing crude oil terminals in Nigeria, including integrated terminals, crude oil pipelines, issuance of loading clearances and processing of export permit in line with Section 8, subsection D of the PIA, as regulatory activities at crude oil terminals are interdependent and contingent. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 3. As intended in the PIA, the NMDPRA statutorily should concentrate fully on regulating the midstream and downstream activities, that is, from refineries, mid-downstream gas infrastructure, supply, storage, and distribution of refined petroleum products, petrochemicals, virtual pipelines, and retailing activities in line with the provisions of the PIA, including future standalone crude oil and natural gas export terminals. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 4, that there should be an immediate streamlining of the agencies present at the terminals in line with the relevant provisions of their PIA, delineated upstream and midstream / downstream statutory functions, while NUPRC should strengthen deployment. This strengthening, or you want to say deployment should, while NUPRC should deploy. Or you want to amend that? Okay, please, Mr. Piafi. I'm sure you know where I'm coming from. Okay, should deploy digital accounting procedures, such as advanced cargo declaration, Yes, Apia. Okay, now this recommendation 4 is about deployment of digital accounting procedures. Okay, such as advanced cargo declaration, digital integration of LACT units, LACT units at all crude oil terminals for transparent hydrocarbon accounting. Those in favor of this recommendation as amended. Amendment. We will. Yes.
Mr. President, amendment to recommendation 4. There should be an immediate streamlining of the agencies present at the terminal, in line with the relevance of their PIA delineated upstream and midstream stroke downstream social function, while NUPRC should deploy digital accounting procedure, such as advanced cargo declaration, digital integration of LAC unit at all crude oil terminals for transparent hydrocarbon accounting. I so move within the next 90 days. Or within the next 21 days? 90 days is okay, 90 days. Within the next 20 days, sir. I so move, or I so propose.
Baroche Brain, Kano North. I second the amendment as moved by distinguished Senator Oluwa. I so second.
Those in favor of recommendation 4 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 5. NUPRC should fast track the upgrade of the National Production Monitoring System, NPMS, to enable real-time monitoring of flow station and terminal activities. You see, before we do that, Chairman Albert, you see, some of these time frames, we have to be sure that they're realistic, so we don't impose unnecessary burden that cannot be met on them. You wrote this report, Senator, excuse me, Piafi. Please comment on that before, yeah. You see, we can't put timeline on every recommendation. No, I understand why we need to do so, but I'm saying that I don't think that we can, because it's not implementable. It's not realistic. Some, yes. Others, not. Are you a member of this committee? Why didn't you make that recommendation? Oh, okay.
Of one of the agents of one of the regulatory commissions for us to call a meeting and bring the procurement, the Bureau of Public Procurement DG, to meet with us to tell us what the challenges are. Mr. President, and they didn't do it. If we don't let since it's a national emergency, let me put it like that. So it's a national emergency. You don't just approve these recommendations and we sit in the office. We are here to protect Nigeria and Nigerians. So I believe that when we give this timeline, then everybody, the committee, the leadership of the Senate, owe it a responsibility to make sure that this is, the people that are in procurement office, are they not human beings? If they don't want to do their job, let them be fired. Let them be charged for economic sabotage.
This recommendation deals with National Production Monitoring System. This is technology, am I right? what is the guarantee that this can be implemented within 90 days? I'm not so sure about that. You make laws. You don't just make laws, because you want to make them. Yes, Senator Piafi, thank you. Senator Barao.
Mr. President, I think because it has to do with technology. You need to design it. Then you need to go for procurement. Procurement process takes up to, excuse me, let's be realistic. So I think we can give, if we have to, give a date within which this should be done, we can say 6 months. You can say 6 months. No, you can't do that. You can't have all you need to design the system. You need to procure the system. We know the timeline involved in procurement process. So, we have to we have to factor this into timeline that we need to give.
Mr. Barao, please give us an amendment for 6 months. Yes.
6 months should be okay. Mr. President, sir, I move that this should be done within the timeline of 6 months. I so recommend. I so move.
Thank you. I so second the proposal of the Mr. Senator Barao that the implementation will be within the next 6 months. Within the next 6 months.
Those in favor of recommendation 5 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You are the only one who spoke. Recommendation 6, that the NUPRC should expedite the deployment and strict enforcement of the Advanced Crude Oil Cargo Declaration Solution for detection and mitigation of illegal movement of vessels to ensure adequate revenue generation and optimal crude oil accounting, thus enhancing revenue generation of the Federation. You want to amend it for 6 months? Any seconder? Okay, those in favor of this recommendation as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. That's 6 months. 7, that the NU PLC must ensure that all vessels coming to Nigerian waters for the purpose of crude oil lifting adhere strictly with Advanced Cargo Declaration, ACD, in line with international best practices in collaboration with Nigerian Navy and other relevant statutory agencies in line with the presidential approval. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 8, that the Ministry of Transport should immediately withdraw its interference with Advanced Cargo Declaration on wet petroleum cargoes in alignment with statutory mandates of the NUPRC under the PIA. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 9, that the NUPRC should summarily conclude engineering audits of existing LACT units and flow meters for efficient regulation and monitoring for integrity assurance and standardization of crude oil measurement systems in Nigeria upstream oil and gas operations within 90 days. Chairman Albert. So 6 months. Anybody who's, yes, seconder? Good. Those in favor of this recommendation 9 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it as amended. 10, that the Bureau of Public Procurement should expedite all processes of procurement for the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, to ensure immediate deployment of an online real-time monitoring system by the Commission across all upstream and gas production platforms to ensure accurate measure of production volumes by their producers. Within what time? Chairman Albert. Chairman, so what's your recommendation? It can be. It can be. 21 days. Any seconder? Okay, Senator Barao. 21 days. Seconded. Those in favor of recommendation 10 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 11, curtailing crude oil theft should be a collective responsibility. Thereby, where many members of the public must be encouraged to report illegal activities or transactions in stolen crude oil that may come to your knowledge from any part of the world. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. Do we make it 21 days? No. The ayes have it. Yes. Curtailing crude oil theft should be a collective responsibility, whereby, okay, Secretariat, please note. 12, Nigeria should seek international financial collaboration to check illegal letters of credit used to fund the sale and purchase of Nigerian stolen crude, as such illegal crude sales can only be transacted through the world financial system. Those in favor of the recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 13, that the Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream must ensure effective and periodic. This is your job. Please. Yes. Senator Barao, please. This is your job. This is the job of the committee. Yes. But yes, okay. Yes.
The mic is not working, sir. I recommend that this recommendation should be expunged because the committee has the constitutional purview to perform its function. You can only tell them, call them to order that they should be performing their duty. The Senate President should do that, and that will remain in the Hansard. Otherwise, there's no point. There's no point. No, there's no. I have the floor. I have the floor, sir. I have the floor, sir. They have the constitutional purview, responsibility to perform their function. There's no point bringing this as a resolution that they should do their job. So I move that this recommendation should be expunged. I so move.
And Senator Piafi, you second. Those in favor that this recommendation be expunged say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. It's expunged. 14, which is now 13. 14 becomes 13. The clerk of the Senate should communicate the resolutions hearing to the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Nigerian National Petroleum Company, that's NNPC Limited, international and indigenous operating oil companies, and other relevant agencies for immediate adoption and implementation. Those. Is there any amendment to this? Time. Within. No, that's okay. No. This is a directive now from the Senate. Do we say within 2 weeks, he said? 2 weeks. Barra, please second it. Within 14 days. Thank you. Those in favor that the recommendation of 8.14 be adopted as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayers, leader.
My additional prayer is that the executive arm of government must ensure that the Petroleum Industry Act is implemented to the letter in order to allow the regulatory institutions to work strictly in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Interference in their operations and responsibilities by the Ministry and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company should cease forthwith.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Those in favor of the recommendation, the additional recommendation, as moved by the former Senate leader and seconded by Senator Matthew Roy, they say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, the leader of the Senate.
Because of the importance of this report, I want to pray that the Senate should organize a workshop bringing together the stakeholders, the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, International Indigenous Operating Oil Companies, and other relevant agencies for immediate to explain or to emphasize the need to implement the PIA.
Seconder. Okay, leader to leader, Senator Tazi, you second. Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Senator Basi Akpan for this very well thought out and all-encompassing report that you've given to us. And I want to also thank all of our colleagues for the interest they've shown and the full participation. I have no doubt that these recommendations, when fully implemented, will address the principal reason why this committee was set up in the first place, to address the challenge of oil theft and thereby enhance the revenue generation of the federal government to assist in the funding of the budget. So once again, I thank you very much. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate, please take Barao and his three. Yeah.
Mr. President, the fifth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Women Affairs on the National Center for Women Development Act, Amendment Bill 2022. The senior senator will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Wednesday, 27th July 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to advise Senator Betty Apiafi, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. I so move.
Senator Betty Apiafi, please.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, may I move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Women Affairs on the National Center for Women Development Act Amendment Bill 2022 SB 1042. I so move.
Any seconder? Senator Barao.
Mr. President, I am Senator Baroji Brin, Abdullah North. I stand to second the motion, ably moved by Senator Apiafi. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Betty Apiafi, please. You may present the report.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I present the report of the Senate Committee on Women Affairs on the National Center for Women Development Act, CAP 15, NFN 2004, Amendment Bill 2022, to enhance the functions of the center and rename the center after Her Excellency Dr. Mariam Ibrahim Babangida, and for related matters. Mr. President, I'll be very brief. The Senate in a plenary on the 26th of July 2002 read this bill for the first time. Thereafter, on the 5th of October, the Senate deliberated on the bill and referred it to the Committee on Women Affairs for further legislative action. The committee had a public hearing on the 25th of October 2022 and to source for input and opinion of critical stakeholders on the bill. Several stakeholders were invited for the public hearing, and the committee came up with recommendations as is in the bill presented. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'd like to thank distinguished Senator Sani Musa for his support to this committee in the course of the public hearing, and also like to thank the leadership of the Senate, especially the President of the Senate, for the opportunity given to us to carry out this assignment. Mr. President, I so submit.
Thank you. In the absence of any contributions, Committee of the Whole. Another leader. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Committee of the Whole. The National Center for Women Development Act, Amendment Bill 2022, SB 1042. The long title is contained on page 1. Those in favor that the long title form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Total number of clauses, 15. Those in favor that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The interpretation clause, clause 14, is contained on page 2. Those in favor that clause 14, which is interpretation clause form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Short title, clause 15, is contained on page 13. Those in favor that clause 15, which is short title for part of the bill, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum is contained on page 13. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum form part of the bill, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I move that the plenary, House reverse to plenary for Mr. President to present the report. I so move.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The National Center for Women Development Act Amendment Bill 2022 SB 1042. Long title, page 1, as recommended. Clauses 1 to 13, as recommended. Interpretation, clause 14, interpretation clause 14 on page 12, as recommended. Short title, clause 15 on page 13, as recommended. Explanatory memorandum, page 13, as recommended. Is this what transpired at the Committee of the Whole? Clerk.
We've done that. We've done it, 145.
Leader of the Senate.
Yes, Mr. President, I now move that the motion that the National Center for Women Development Act Amendment Bill 2022 now be read the third time. I so move.
Mr. Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion as moved by the leader. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the National Center for Women Development Act, Cap N15, LFN 2004, to enhance the functions of the center and rename the center after Mariam Babangida and for related matters, 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Center for Women Development Act, Cap N15 LFN 2004, to enhance the functions of the center and rename the center after Mariam Babangida and for related matters 2022, third reading taken. The bill is read the third time and passed into law. Leader of the Senate.
President, I want to seek your indulgence and approval that the sixth order, the seventh order, and the eighth order be taken together and will be presented by Senator Jibrin Barau. I so move.
Senator Tazi, you so second. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may take all three together.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, I stand on behalf of Senator Ambe Baba Keita, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Tertiary Education and TEDFON, to move that this August Senate do receive and consider the reports of the Committee on Tertiary Institution and TEDFON on the Federal Polytechnic Cabo and Federal University of Health Sciences, Azare, Bauchi State, and last but not least, Federal College of Education, Jama'ari. Mr. President, I so move.
Please second.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Barau. I so second.
Thank you, Senator Piafi. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Barau, you may proceed. Lay and present.
Mr. President, these reports are for the establishment of Federal Polytechnic Cabo and Federal University of Health Sciences as a Bauchi State and Federal College of Education, Jama'ari, Bauchi State. Mr. President, we are all familiar with the laws establishing institutions in this chamber. These laws have been put together in line with what we've done on several institutions. We've passed laws establishing federal polytechnics, federal universities, and so on and so forth. So what we have here is not different from what we've done, what we've been doing.
They are standard and routine.
Hook, line, and sinker. I therefore request that we move to the next stage of debating or dealing with these bills. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you. Considering that these are standard bills, establishment bills, which you've handled several in the past, there's no point wasting time on this. I'll now call on the leader of the Senate for Committee of the Whole. Move a motion for Committee of the Whole, please.
I move that the Senate should resolve to the Committee of Whole for the bills to be considered.
Senator, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion that we resolve in the Committee of Whole to look at the three bills before us.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Committee of the Whole. The first one is the Federal Polytechnic Cabo Establishment Bill 2022, SB 09. The long title is contained on page 1. Those in favor that the long title as contained on page 1 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The number of clauses is 34. Those in favor that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 31, 32, 33, 34 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The interpretation clause is contained on page 28 on clause 33. Those in favor that clause 33 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The short title is clause 34 on page 29. Those in favor that the short title clause 34 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The schedule is 1 is on page 29. Those in favor that this schedule form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum is on page 35. Those in favor that this explanatory memorandum form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The second bill is the Federal University of Health Sciences, Azare, Bauchi State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 990. The long title, as usual, is contained on page 1. Those in favor that the long title as contained on page 1 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We have 33 clauses altogether here. Those in favor that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 31, 32, 33 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The interpretation clause is contained on page 32 as clause 32. Those in favor that clause 32 interpretation clause form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The short title of the bill is contained on clause 33 on page 34. Those in favor that the short title form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We have the schedules is 3, schedules 1, 2, and 3 on pages 34 to 36. Those in favor that the schedules 1, 2, and 3 as contained on pages 34 to 36 form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum is contained on page 62. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum as therein contained form part of the bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The final report is the Federal College of Education, Jamari Bauchi State, Establishment Bill 2022 SB 991. As usual, the long title is contained on page 1. Those in favor that the long title of this bill as therein contained on page 1 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We have a total number of clauses, 28 clauses altogether. Those in favor that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 form part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 26, 27, and 28 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The interpretation clause, which is clause 27, is contained on page 28. Those in favor that interpretation clause as contained in clause 27 on page 28 form part of this bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. The short title is contained in clause 28 on page 29. Those in favor that the short title as therein contained on clause 28, page 29 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The schedules, one schedule is on page 29. Those in favor that the schedule 1 as contained on page 29 form part of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you. The explanatory memorandum is on page 31. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum as therein contained on page 31 form part of this bill say aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Having concluded the consideration of these three bills, I move that Senate should revert to plenary for the President to present the report. Progress. How many copies is it?
Which one? And what page? Page 24. Page. Hold on one second. Okay, page 24, clause 21. Okay, let's hear you. Yes.
For academic staff, that is those who are not on the professorial cadre. The professorial cadre is okay, 70 years, and other academic staff is now 65, not 60 years. Mr. President, I so move that it should be amended.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second the motion as ably moved by Senator Larry Dadu.
Chairman Barrow. No. Actually, I should be asking. Is this standard? Is this 60 or 65? What standard? 65. 65, 70. Yeah, but what we have here is 60. So we'll make it 65. And that's seconded. Oh, it's a typo. Okay. Those in favor of this amendment to clause 21, as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Is this the only place where we have this error? Only this one? Okay. Leader of the Senate. Secretariat, please note that. Huh? Leader of the Senate.
Yes, having corrected this error, I move that Senate reverse of plenary for Mr. President to report progress. I so move.
Yes, it is there. I rise to second the motion that the chair reverse to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the Federal Polytechnic Cabo Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. The clauses 1 to 32 as recommended. Interpretation, clause 33 as recommended. Short title, clause 34 as recommended. The schedules 1 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the Federal University of Health Sciences Azare, Bauchi State Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. The number of clauses 31, clauses 1 to 31 as recommended. Clauses 1 to 20. I take that back. Number of clauses 31. Clauses 1 to 20 as recommended. Clause 21 as amended. Clauses 22 to 31 as recommended. Interpretation clause, clause 32 as recommended. Short title, clause 33 as recommended. Schedules 1 to 3 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? The third one. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the Federal College of Education, Jamal, Bauchi State Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. Clauses, total clauses 26. Clauses 1 to 26 as recommended. Interpretation on clause 27 as recommended. Short title, clause 28 as recommended. The schedules 1 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I now move that these bills be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second that the three bills considered be read for the third time. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic, Cabo, Kano State, to provide full-time courses in technology, applied science, management, and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration and for other related matters 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Health Sciences as a Bauchi State and for matters connected there with 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal College of Education, Jamare, Bauchi State, and for matters connected there with 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic, Cabo, Kano State, to provide full-time courses in technology, applied science, management, and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration and for other related matters 2022, third reading taken. The bill is read the third time and passed into law. Which is that one? Azare is next. A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Health Sciences, Azare, Bauchi State, and for matters connected therewith. Third reading taken. The bill is read the third time and passed into law. A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal College of Education, Jamal, Bauchi State, and for matters connected therewith. Third reading taken. The bill is read the 10th time and passed into law. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, we have 6 bills listed for concurrence. And this is the 9th order to the 14th order of the day. These are House bills for concurrence as listed on the order paper. Distinguished senators will recall that these bills were read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 26 July 2022, Wednesday, 18th December 2019,
You see, we're having a challenge, distinguished colleagues. We have so many of our bills awaiting concurrence in the House of Reps. And they've put their foot down that unless and until, we also consider theirs here, they will no longer consider us. And there's no malice involved here. It's just that we've had challenges with our schedule. So I'm going to crave your indulgence if you don't mind. Let's just spend some few minutes. They are beautiful concurrence anyway. We just go through them so that we'll be in a position tomorrow to also hold them, to account on why ours have not been considered, if you don't mind. Thank you. Do we have the bills? Do we have the reports here? Okay. Do we have two? Okay, leader, if we don't have them,